preparation. For example, the bride's father might stipulate, "Okay, if you want my daughter for your son, here are my terms. By the end of the betrothal period, I want 50,000 shekels, 10 camels, and 10 donkeys. I want a furnished house paid for and ready for my daughter. She will need 2 menservants and maidservants." The groom's father might then respond, "I accept those terms. Now for my son, I want a wife who can cook, sew, weave, wash, and generally run the household. She also needs to be able to bear children so that my son can raise up heirs." Once the terms of the contract were agreed upon, both parties would sign and it would become official. The modern-day equivalent of this contract, even though we don't hear much about it anymore, is the idea of a dowry that each person, but particularly the bride, brings into the marriage. After the contract was signed, the formal period of engagement began. For the next 9 to 12 months, the bride and groom busied themselves getting ready for each other. The groom went to work earning money, so that the 50,000 shekels would be there at the right time. He bought or built a house and rexed it up so it would be ready for his new wife. He had to be a good businessman, a good leader, and a good organizer, a self-controlled man who did not squander his money. During those months of betrothal, he had to prepare himself physically, mentally, psychologically, and socially for receiving his bride and making the transition from bachelor to married head of a household. In the meantime, the bride's mother was making sure her daughter knew how to sew, weave, cook, clean, and keep house. The bride learned how to manage a household budget. At some point, the mother also taught her daughter about the physical and sexual aspects of marriage from a wife's perspective, so that the new bride would know what to expect and how to please her husband. Let's be honest now. Don't you think that if couples in our day and age would return to some kind of formal agreement like this when they became engaged, that they would avoid many of the problems that are so common to newlyweds? So many couples today go into marriage with little or no financial preparation. They don't know where they are going to live or even how they are going to make a living. Even before they become financially stable, they have a baby, then another, with no plan and no clue how to provide for them. Think what a difference it would make if the young lady's father sat down with the young man and said, "If you want to marry my daughter with my blessing, here is what I expect from you." And then give him a list of the things he needs to do to demonstrate that he is ready to marry the girl. Check the fellow out. How does he plan to support her? Does he have a good, steady job? Where will they live? An apartment? A condo? A house of their own? Any responsible father wants to ensure that his daughter is going to be taken care of and treated well by the man who marries her. Expectations are not as important as understanding and agreeing that both are equally responsible for everything that goes into making their marriage work. At the same time, a prospective husband needs to know that the woman he is marrying has the basic skills necessary to help him run the household and build a successful marriage. Expectations are not as important as understanding and agreeing that both are equally responsible for the home and the relationship, for raising the kids, for money management, and for everything else that goes into making their marriage work. Of course, in our society, a couple that is of age can marry without their parents' blessing or consent. Sometimes this is unavoidable. If possible, however, it is always better to have the parents' consent and blessing because it helps smooth things along, particularly in the earliest days of the marriage. A 14-year engagement. We live in a day and age characterized by impatience and the demand for instant gratification. Few people are willing to wait anymore. Whatever we want it right now. Many newly married couples today insist on immediately buying a house of their own even if they cannot really afford it. Their reason? Mom and dad own their own home, so why not us? They never stop to think that mom and dad might have had to wait or 10 years or longer before they were ready financially to invest in buying a home. Many couples today who plan to marry dispense with a long engagement. They don't see the point, they're just anxious to get on with it. If you think you would have a problem waiting through a 9-month engagement, what about 14 years? Would you wait 14 years to get the one you love? Would that person wait 14 years for you? The book of Genesis tells the story of how Jacob fell in love with a beautiful woman named Rachel and, in the end, worked for 14 years in order to have her as his wife. Jacob was the son of Isaac and Rebekah. After incurring the murderous wrath of his older brother Esau by cheating him out of both his birthright and his father's blessing for the eldest son, Jacob fled for his life. Eventually, Jacob made his way to his mother's homeland and settled down with the family of her brother, his uncle Laban. It was there that Jacob met Rachel, Laban's younger daughter. He quickly fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. Jacob's story reveals some more information regarding engagement and marriage customs and practices of the day. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to Get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to lie with her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and gave her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. And Laban gave his servant girl Zilpah to his daughter as her maidservant. When morning came, the re was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant girl Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maidservant. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban another 7 years, Gen. 29:18-30. Jacob entered into a contract with Laban under which he would work for his uncle for 7 years in return for receiving Rachel as his wife. Laban proved to be as much of a schemer and deceiver as Jacob himself. After the 7 years were completed and Jacob asked for Rachel, Laban tricked him by marrying him to Leah, his older daughter. How could such a thing have happened? How was Jacob deceived into marrying the wrong woman? It is not so hard to understand when we remember the customs of the day. First of all, Jacob would have had very little physical contact with Rachel during those 7 years and absolutely no contact that was sexual in nature. Second, at the time of the wedding ceremony, the bride's face was completely covered by an opaque veil that would be removed only by her husband when they were alone together in the bridal chamber. Third, after the wedding ceremony, as we saw with Tobias and Sarah, the bride was taken to the bridal chamber to wait for her new husband. Only after many hours of feasting and celebrating would the husband join his wife in the tent. By that time it was completely dark, and the husband and wife would not even see each other's faces until the next morning. Because of these customs, Jacob had no reason to know that he did not have Rachel until he saw the face of Leah in the morning light. Greatly angered at the deception, Jacob confronted Laban, who simply explained that it was not customary to marry the younger daughter before the older daughter. Laban struck another deal with Jacob. After Jacob finished the bridal week with Leah, Laban gave him Rachel in marriage in return for another 7 years of work. Jacob agreed to the terms because of his love for Rachel. It is important to note that Jacob did not have to work the additional 7 years before he married Rachel. He worked them afterwards to meet the conditions set by her father. Had he not done so, Laban could have taken Rachel away and probably would have done so. In it, then, Jacob had a 14-year engagement period. He invested 14 years of his life in order to have the woman he loved. The fact that 7 of those years came after he married her is immaterial. They were still conditions he had to meet. Schemer though he was, Laban was looking out for the welfare of his daughters. He put Jacob to work at least partly so that his daughters would not be married to a man who was broke. During the 21 years that Jacob worked for Laban, 7 each for his 2 wives and 7 additional years to build up his own rocks and herds, Jacob became very prosperous. The Lord blessed him so that he became as rich as his uncle. When Jacob Rinaldi left Laban and took his family and livestock back to his own homeland, he was a very wealthy man. Engagement, a time to secure marriage stability. Jacob's experience is probably rather unique. Few people are ever in his position of having to work 14 years for the woman he loves. His story illustrates the fact that engagement is not a time of idleness and pie in the sky by dreaming, but a period of hard work and preparation. When Jacob and his family left Laban's house, they took with them everything Jacob had acquired during his time there. Those 21 years prepared him thoroughly to provide for his wives and children in every way. His time of preparation helped secure and ensure the success and stability of his marriage and family. Engagement is not a time of idleness and pie in the sky by dreaming, but a period of hard work and preparation. That is where the lesson lies for us today. Contrary to the way many couples treat it, the engagement period is a time to secure the stability of the upcoming marriage. Most unsuccessful marriages fail because of issues that could have and should have been addressed during the engagement. Finances, housing, sexual needs and expectations, parenting philosophy, educational dreams and goals, all of these are potential trouble spots for married couples. Trouble can be avoided or at least minimized simply by discussing and working through these issues before the wedding so that both parties have a full and complete understanding and are in agreement with each other. Most unsuccessful marriages fail because of issues that could have and should have been addressed during the engagement. Engagement is a time of preparation for marriage. Note that I did not say a time of preparation for the wedding. Certainly wedding planning needs to take place during that time, but that is not the primary purpose of the engagement period. Many couples make the mistake of planning only for the wedding and thinking very little about what follows. A wedding is an event, but marriage is a life. A wedding lasts only a brief time, but a marriage lasts until death do us part. Where is the wisdom in spending $500 on a wedding dress, $10,000 on the wedding, $5,000 on the reception, but not a single penny on books or counseling or other resources on how to make a marriage? An engagement devoted solely to planning for a 30-minute ceremony is wasted time. Much more important is time spent getting ready for the marriage, preparing for a lifetime with the person you have chosen and who has chosen you. A wedding is an event, but marriage is a life. Paul gave this counsel to the believers in Ephesus. Be very careful, then, how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. F5:15-17. Although Paul is speaking primarily about the proper way believers should live, his counsel applies just as well to engaged couples. Make the most of your opportunity before the wedding to prepare yourselves for the marriage that follows. Verse 16 in the King James Version reads, "Redeeming the time, because the days are evil." Don't waste your engagement period on daydreaming and rites of fancy or naively assuming, "We're in love, everything will work out." Redeem the time. Use your time wisely to consider, plan, think through, and discuss every aspect of your upcoming life together. Success in marriage does not come by accident, but only through careful planning. The time to plan for success is not after you say, "I do," but long before you stand at the altar. The time to plan for a successful marriage is during your engagement. 1 THENEWINGLISHBIBLE NEWYORK CAMBRIDGEUNIVERSITYPRESS 1972. Chapter 5. Principles. 1. Engagement is a critical and indispensable time of preparation for marriage. 2. An engaged couple is committed to each other in a singular and exclusive way, just as if they are already married, except that they are not yet free to have sexual relations. 3. Engagement is the beginning of marriage, the RRST stage in the marriage relationship. 4. Engagement is the period when the marriage covenant is established between a man and a woman. 5. Godly marriage is a covenant. Engagement is the beginning of that covenant and marriage is the consummation of it. 6. The engagement period is a time to secure the stability of the upcoming marriage. 7. The time to plan for a successful marriage is during your engagement. Chapter 6. Engagement, redeeming the time. As a vital preparation time for marriage, the engagement period is too important to waste on inconsequential matters. Many engaged couples do little more during that time than plan the wedding and perhaps talk in generalities about work and career plans. It is quite common for couples to wait until they are engaged to talk specifically about their goals. While this is better than not talking about them at all, engagement is not really the time for such a discussion. Courtship is the time for couples to talk about their goals and objectives, their dreams and desires, and to plan their future. By the time a couple reaches the engagement stage, all these things should be in place. They should know where they want to go, how they plan to get there, and should have a oneness of heart and spirit to go there together. Engagement is the time for couples to put into place and execute their action plan to get them where they want to go. It is a time to move from planning to walking determinedly together in the same direction. One definition of the word engage is to interlock with, or mesh together, and the word engagement, the state of being in gear. By the time a couple becomes engaged, their goals, objectives, dreams, desires, and values should interlock with each other and mesh together as one, and they should be in gear with each other as they move forward with their practical preparations to bring those things to pass. Engagement is the time for couples to put into place and execute their action plan to get them where they want to go. I counsel young couples to use their engagement period to develop a 50-year life plan, a plan that lays out where they want to go, what they want to do, and what they want to become over the next 50 years. Of course, it is impossible for anyone to predict with complete accuracy the direction his or her life will take over a 50-year period. Unanticipated life changes and unexpected opportunities will almost certainly come along that could lead to a change in direction. Some goals may be reached and some plans come to fruition sooner than expected, while others may be dropped altogether. Any such life plan therefore needs to have built-in flexibility to allow for the unexpected. The important thing is for engaged couples to have a plan, a roadmap to guide them over the months and years of marriage that lie ahead, and to help them stay on course to reach their dreams and goals and avoid getting sidetracked onto dead ends or other paths that will take them where they don't want to go. For some folks, engagement means going out for ice cream, going to movies, holding hands, kissing and such. That's not engagement, that's dating. Of course, engaged couples do those kinds of things because they continue dating, but engagement involves much more than that, it goes much deeper. Engagement is hardcore planning, where a couple gets down to the brass tacks of preparing for life after the wedding. This is where, depending on their circumstances, they go looking for an apartment to rent or a house to buy or a plot of land on which to build. They talk to real estate agents and house contractors. They visit banks to check out car loans. They set money back in savings against future expenses. They consider and anticipate every possible snag or glitch or obstacle they can think of and provide for those possibilities in advance. The goal is to have everything so well in order by the end of the engagement period that, from the start their marriage, everything will run like a well-oiled machine. There are several key areas that engaged couples should focus their attention on during this all-critical period of engagement. Proper care and preparation given to these things now will smooth the transition into married life and make things a lot easier down the line. Any couples seeking to ensure a healthy and successful marriage should give due attention to a spiritual foundation, economic stability, educational goals, parenting philosophy, and sexual standards. Together, these areas comprise the categories where virtually all marital problems and divisions occur. Getting in gear with each other now on these issues will help avoid problems later on. A spiritual foundation. Every believing couple should lay a strong, solid, spiritual foundation for their marriage during their engagement. Don't wait until after the wedding. So many things are going on in the aftermath of a wedding and making the adjustment to married life that securing a solid spiritual foundation can be easily shoved aside. By spiritual foundation, I am not talking about determining whether or not each partner is a believer. That should have been established during the dating, courtship phase. If it was not, then by all means take care of it now. No single area is more important for future marital success than for a couple to make sure they are in gear spiritually, that they see eye to eye on spiritual matters. Among other things, laying a solid spiritual foundation means coming into agreement about where they will go to church, his church, her church. A neutral church as a compromise? Agreeing on one church that they will attend together is important for the sake of spiritual harmony in the home, as well as helping to prevent spiritual confusion in the minds of the children later on. Mommy, why do we have to go to church? Daddy doesn't. Daddy, why does Mommy go to a different church than we do? This is also why it is important for a couple to make the commitment beforehand to regular attendance and active involvement in Bible study, praise and worship, preaching, and ministry and service in whatever local fellowship of believers they choose. No single area is more important for future marital success than for a couple to make sure they are in gear spiritually, that they see eye to eye on spiritual matters. Laying a strong spiritual foundation also means understanding and recognizing the God-given role of the man as the spiritual leader, not dictator, of the home under the overall lordship of Jesus Christ. The man must be willing to accept this responsibility. Both partners must make a mutual commitment to building a strong Christian home. The Bible clearly indicates that a RRM spiritual foundation is the most important aspect in building a healthy marriage and family life. Moses gave the Israelites these instructions shortly before they crossed the Jordan River into the land of Canaan. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. The SE commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Deuteronomy 6:4-7. Parents were charged not only to obey God's commands themselves, but to teach their children to obey them as well. This requires a RRM spiritual foundation in the home. Our society today is plagued by the laissez-faire, or hands-on, attitude many parents have toward the spiritual lives of their children. We don't want to pressure them to accept our beliefs. They need to make their own decisions. Indeed, everyone must make a personal choice regarding spiritual matters, but that does not relieve us as parents of our God-given responsibility to teach our children our beliefs and values. Children must make their own choices, yes, but they deserve the opportunity to make an informed choice. How can they do that unless we teach them? Scripture also warns of the spiritual dangers to the marriage and family life of believers being unequally yoked with unbelievers. As we noted in chapter 4, a believer should not marry an unbeliever. That kind of union makes it impossible to build a solid spiritual foundation, because the unbelieving partner lacks the necessary spiritual frame of reference. Paul told the Corinthian believers, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" 2 Cor 6:14, through Moses, God gave a similar warning to the Israelites before they entered the land of Canaan. Referring to the pagan peoples who inhabited the land, Moses said, "Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods, and the lords. Anger will burn against you, and will quickly destroy you." Deuteronomy 7:3-4. Although the primary focus of these verses is on the danger of believers marrying unbelievers, the same principle applies in emphasizing the importance of two believers, who are engaged or married, being in spiritual harmony and agreement with each other. Spiritual harmony promotes oneness, which is one vital characteristic couples should develop during their engagement. Oneness is at the heart of what Jesus desires for his children. His prayer to his Father the night before he was crucified was a prayer for all of us. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through the I message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me, and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them, and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity to let the world know that you sent me, and have loved them even as you have loved me. John 17:20-23. Complete unity or oneness is Christ's desire for his people, and that includes believing couples, either married or soon to be married. Oneness is the glue that holds a relationship together. Without this sense of oneness, a marriage relationship will gradually start breaking up into his and her segments, separate bank accounts, separate goals, separate visions, separate beds, and separate lives. Lack of oneness is a sure sign of trouble in the relationship, and one of the best ways to build oneness is to be in spiritual harmony and agreement with each other. The ideal time to build oneness and spiritual harmony is during engagement. Oneness is the glue that holds a relationship together. Economic stability. Next to spiritual matters, economic and financial issues probably cause more marital problems than any other area. Continual disagreements over money or financial management practices cause serious hurt and injury to any relationship. A couple entering marriage with no financial plan is headed for trouble from the start. After the wedding is not the time for a couple to discover that their current income is not enough to buy groceries, put gas in the car, pay the light bill, and pay the rent for the apartment they just moved into. The morning after their RRST night as husband and wife is not the time for her to hear him say, "Well, I guess I'd better go look for a job." Issues such as these should be settled during engagement, long before the wedding day. That may sound like a no-brainer statement, but you would be amazed at the number of engaged couples I encounter who give almost no thought to these things. They just go merrily along day by day, blithely ignoring or blissfully unaware of the economic and financial realities of married life. Many of them discover too late that two people cannot live as cheaply as one. Too late they learn that wise financial planning is much harder to do on the run, amidst all the adjustments and obligations of married life, than to sit down beforehand and chart the financial course of their lives. Long before they say I do, couples should discuss and nail down the financial strategy they will take into their marriage. Will the husband alone work outside the home? Or will both husband and wife work? If employed, are one or both beyond the standard probationary period, or will be by the time of the wedding? Will they work a job as an employee of someone else, or will they start their own business? If they plan to start their own business, do they have the financial capital to do so immediately? If not, how will they acquire the capital? Will they borrow it? Will they seek investors to partner with them in the venture? Will they work a regular job for a while, saving every penny they can until they have the capital they need to break out on their own? Where will they live? How much can they afford to pay? Will they rent an apartment? Will they buy a house? Will they build a house? If buying or building, which banks offer the lowest interest rates and the best service? Will they live in the city or in the suburbs, on the beach or along the freeway? How many cars will they drive and what kind? Will they be new or used? Can they get by with one, or will they need two? Can they afford the insurance for their vehicles? What kind of health care coverage will they have? How will they pay for it, especially if they are self-employed? How will they make their money grow and work for them? What is their investment plan? Do they have an investment plan? How often will they invest and at what amount? What is their financial plan for retirement? Do they have one? Do they have a family budget? Does it allow a reasonable amount for personal allowances, including leisure and recreation? Are they willing and prepared to pool their money into joint bank accounts? How will they handle extra money, gifts, bonuses, overtime, tax refunds, inheritances, etc.? If one or both are still in school, do they have a practical plan for renishing? Do they have a financial strategy in place to ensure that they can finish? Singleness or oneness of purpose and goal is just as important in the economic arena as in the spiritual. Couples need to work together and be equally knowledgeable about the financial affairs of the household because they are partners in marriage, not simply two individuals living in the same house. They need to be in mutual agreement about how, and when and on what they will spend their money. More often than not, this will involve agreeing together on general principles, and those principles will then be used to guide each specific situation. Nothing can start a financial argument faster than the discovery that one partner spent money outside the agreed-upon guidelines without discussing it with the other partner first. One of the most frustrating things I have run into is couples who don't know what to do with the economic life they have. The husband and wife live in two different worlds. I have met some husbands who are ashamed that their wives know how much they make. These are folks who had been married for 20 years. One wife I spoke with who had been married for 23 years confessed to me that she still did not know how much money her husband made. Can you imagine that? Couples need to work together and be equally knowledgeable about the financial affairs of the household. Because they are partners in marriage, not simply two individuals living in the same house. Partnership in the economic affairs of the home is even more important in our day with more and more women working full-time careers. More families today than ever before have two primary income sources: husband and wife. This calls for both to be upfront and open with their income, sharing it in a common pool. Otherwise, they will sow the seeds of division. Unless we train and condition ourselves differently, it is easy to fall into the mine and yours trap. I work my job, you work yours. I have my money, you have yours. I can do whatever I like with my money, and you can do the same with yours. This kind of attitude will destroy oneness between partners. Remember, there is no mine and yours in marriage, there is only ours. Two independent people coming together in marriage do not automatically start thinking as one as soon as the wedding is over. If they enter marriage thinking and acting as one, it is only because they learned how to do it together during their engagement. There is no room in marriage for division, especially over finances. Ultimately, division will destroy the relationship. Jesus said, "Any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall." Luke 11:17b. Although Jesus was referring specifically to Satan and his kingdom, and to the accusation that he was casting out demons by Satan's power, the principle applies equally to any human relationship. Whether it is an engagement house or a marriage house, a house divided against itself will fall. Educational goals. Engagement should also be a time when a couple nails down their personal and professional educational goals and commit themselves to doing everything they can to ensure each other's success in reaching those goals. The ideal is for both partners to complete all of their planned education before getting married, but this is not always possible or practical. In those instances, the couple should try to schedule their wedding in such a way as to cause the least possible impact on educational plans. For example, if the young woman has 1 year of college left, postpone the wedding for a year. Let her finish her degree. Both she and her fiancé will be better for it, and so will their marriage. Too many couples never attain their educational goals because they underestimate the impact that getting married will have on their lives. Of all the experiences that human beings have between birth and death, nothing is more stressful than getting married. Marriage injects more stress into life than having a baby or experiencing the death of a loved one. By itself, stress is neutral, neither good nor bad. Stress results from any major change in our lives, and is the measure of our ability to adjust to those changes. Life changes may be good or bad, but they will create stress either way. Regardless of the source, stress can have profound negative effects on us physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Normally, marriage is a good life change, yet it generates a significant amount of stress. Many couples who assume they can get married and continue with the same plans they had before become discouraged very quickly when they slam into the brick wall of reality. Take it from me, in almost every situation it is much more difficult to continue or to finish school after getting married than it is to do so before getting married. I've seen it happen too many times. Young people with a lot of promise, a lot on the ball, and brilliant and wonderful dreams seem headed for the heights of success. Then, while still in school, they get married and everything changes. First, the husband drops out in order to earn money so his wife can stay in school. Before long, however, a baby arrives on the scene, and now mama has to drop out of school to care for it. This couple that once showed such enormous potential is now limping along from month to month on income barely sufficient to meet their expenses. They would like to get better jobs and make more money, but they lack the education to qualify for them. They would like to return to school and get their degree, but they cannot afford it. Both are working, but neither can quit to go back to school because they need both incomes to stay afloat. Don't fall into that trap. Careful planning and preparation during the engagement period can help ensure success in reaching a couple's educational goals. If both are still in school and have the means to finish even after getting married, then by all means, they should do it. If not, then they should decide which one will finish school RRST. That one goes to school while the other one works. After graduation, they switch. This kind of cooperation and coordination won't happen by accident. Couples must plan for success, and the time for planning is during engagement. Engagement is the time to establish the plan, marriage is the time to work the plan. Start by carefully assessing the situation. How much money will it take it for one to finish school? For both to finish? How long will it take? Can one or both be full-time students, or will they have to attend school part-time? Are the couple's current resources sufficient to support them on a daily basis as well as pay for school? If not, where will they get the additional financial support they need? Couples must plan for success, and the time for planning is during engagement. These kinds of questions and details are better handled during engagement than during marriage because engagement allows more flexibility while both partners are still technically single. Once they marry, they will then have to allow not only for their own personal needs, desires, and goals, but also for those of the other person. Wise couples, if they can, will work out an educational plan and have it fully in place before they tie the knot so that after they are married they will know exactly where they are going and how they are going to get there. Parenting philosophy. Another important area for couples to discuss and make preparation for before marriage involves parenting and the whole issue of children. Premarital discussion on this subject should focus on 4 questions. Do we want to have children? If so, how many? When will we start our family? How will we raise and discipline our children? The relevance of the last 3 questions depends on how we answer the RRST one. Obviously, if a couple for some reason chooses not to have children, the other questions don't apply. There could be any number of reasons why a couple might choose not to have any children. Career and professional plans are probably the most frequent reason. Fear of passing on a confirmed hereditary health problem or birth defect is another. Whatever the reason, each couple must decide for themselves. Most engaged couples look forward to having children. The Bible, and particularly the Old Testament, speaks often of the joys and the blessings as well as the responsibilities of parenthood. Solomon said, "Sons are a heritage from the Lord, children a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are sons born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their enemies in the gate." P.S. 127:3-5. In the beginning, God told Adam and Eve, "Be fruitful and increase in number," Gen 1:28b. Couples who choose to have children choose a good thing. Assuming that a couple chooses to have children, the next question is, how many? The answer may come down to a simple matter of economics. When planning for a family, couples need to be down to earth and realistic concerning not only the number of children they desire, but how many they can afford financially. Let's face it, it costs money to raise a child from infancy to adulthood. Beyond the financial consideration lies the emotional element. Couples need to make a thoroughly honest assessment not only of how many children they can afford to raise, but also how many they can give proper love, attention, and emotional support to. Children are too important and precious for parents to skimp and cut corners on either financially or emotionally. I have seen too many couples whose heads are led with spiritual foolishness that says, "It doesn't matter how many kids we have, the Lord will provide." All the while they are trying to raise 10 kids on $1,500 a month with another baby on the way. Not only is that foolishness, but it is also irresponsible and presumptuous. It lays the blame on God if the couple cannot support all their children. This very same attitude helps explain why so many children today have been emotionally abandoned at home or literally abandoned on the street. Deciding how soon to have children depends on the specific circumstances of each couple. Ideally, starting a family should wait until both partners have completed all their formal education and have their careers or professions well established. Children deserve to be born into a family environment that is emotionally, spiritually, and financially stable. Discipline of children is another subject related to parenting that couples need to be in clear agreement on. I have seen marriages break up because the husband and wife disagreed on how to discipline their children. This is a difficult area because everyone has his or her own ideas and opinions. Most people discipline their children the way their own parents disciplined them. Even people who grew up under abusive or neglectful parents and vowed they would never be that way to their own children tend to fall into the same mold, particularly under pressure. It is not surprising that people tend to adopt whatever model they saw at home, even when it is a negative model. Children deserve to be born into a family environment that is emotionally, spiritually, and financially stable. For this reason, it is critically important for engaged couples to discuss their backgrounds, models, and philosophies of parenting. They need to understand each other's frame of reference in order to work together in developing the philosophy of discipline that they will use with their own children. Quite often, the diarrhea centers on the question of corporal punishment. To spank or not to spank, that is the question. One person says spanking is biblical and therefore appropriate, while another person says it is a form of child abuse and should not be used. The Bible does say that the rod of discipline is appropriate for children. Some interpret this rod literally as a form of physical punishment, while others view the rod figuratively as referring to the firm principle of discipline itself. Either way, engaged couples need to come to an agreement as to the disciplinary approach they will use so that they can present a united approach to their children. Otherwise, the children will learn very quickly to play one parent against the other. If daddy believes in spanking but mommy doesn't, as soon as daddy takes a belt or a paddle to one of the kids, the child will run to mommy and wail, "Daddy hit me," and there go mommy and daddy in a big RGHT. It is important for parents to agree not to disagree in front of the children. Another parenting-related factor that is an issue for more and more couples is the blended family. If either or both partners have children from a previous relationship who are living with them, both partners need to be in absolute understanding and agreement concerning the authority of the partner who will be in the role of step-parent. At the same time, they must make sure that the children involved understand their relationship to the step-parent and the authority he or she exercises over them. Parenting must never be left to chance, it is too important. Many couples underestimate the